month's work session. And so I'm calling this meeting to order. If we could raise and have a moment of silence, please. Bill, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Attention, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if I could remind all the board members to please have your mics on when you speak. We don't have any recognitions tonight, so we'll go right to public input.
Yes, we have one person.
One public input person.
Mr. Charles Hicks from Jefferson City.
Would you please approach the podium and press the button and address the board, please? You have 3 minutes from the time you start.
I guess I better not thank you all, didn't have it.
If you just hit that little, there you go.
There you go.
So I
Thank you.
just have a moment, thank you all for allowing me here before I start. Appreciate it. A couple of you I know, everybody else I know, but I do thank you for the honor. And I do appreciate what you stand for what you do. I'm not here tonight to fuss or growl or anything like that. I'm just asking for help. That's all I'm doing. Okay.
Thank you.
In 1968, I started a school in Johnson County. It's as far northeast as you can go, if you all know where it's at. There's an elementary school called Doe Valley. And I was raised pretty poor. We grew tobacco for money and had gardens, had some cows. Only thing I knew was the farming. My dad had a 3rd grade education, my mom had a 7th grade education. Her mom died and she had to raise her 3 kids. But I know that's not the point, but they never cared whether I went to school. They never cared whether or not I made good grades. It was all about just farming is what my life was supposed to be. But when I started kindergarten in 1968, I remember just like it was yesterday. I remember there was 3 kids that would go into the office and one would say a prayer, one would say read a Bible verse, and one would say the Pledge of Allegiance. At that time back then, 2 kids would go out and unfold the flag, and they'd pull that on flagpole. Then that evening, they'd take the flag back down. And over these years, I can't tell you much about school. But almost 62 years old, I know very well all those times that those kids done that. I was not a good student. I never had that opportunity to do that. But then when I went into middle school, my 7th grade, it went back then all the way through to 8th grade, it went in high school. But at that time, they had built a new middle school in Mountain City. So I had to go to 8th grade. I don't know what caused it to stop. I never understood that, didn't know why it stopped. But from then on out, that never happened in the school system anymore. But about 5 years ago, it started bothering me that, I ought to do something, or to try to do something for the Lord to get school back, try to get back in school or anything like that. And it kind of fell away, and about 2 years ago, there's a lady in the church. She walked up and she asked me, she said, I go to Mount Horeb School every morning and I pray. She said, you wouldn't be interested in joining me doing that, would you? Now, you couldn't give me $1,000 to make me feel any more happy, because it was like something happened. Something happened right then and there. So for almost 2.5 years, I've been doing it every morning unless I had a doctor's appointment. Stop at Mount Horeb School before I go to work. And now, all of a sudden, it has hit me that it's time, Charlie, for you to do something. And as I'm Charlie Hicks, that's my name. I raised my son up in this school system. I moved here in 1984, and I've been here ever since then. I don't know if you ever heard of Ball Corporation. When I started working for them, it's called Deacon Can at Bush's. They made the food cans for Bush's Beans.
Mr. Gibbs, 3 minutes is up. I'll grant you another minute if you could wrap up, please.
But what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm not here to come to say anything except one thing. I would like to have help from this board. it's hard to handle, having to listen to people fuss all the time and down you all, tell you that you need to do this or need to do that. But I'm asking you, please, think about this and help me in any way that I can start forward. I'm starting here tonight, but I will never give up. I'll never go with an attitude or a personality in a way that people would not want to hear what I say. But I know that Jesus Christ is telling me in the bottom of my heart that it's time. I heard a preacher say the other day, he said in other countries, they've never had a chance to hear about God. They've never had no kind of literature like a Bible to ever read. And we are the United States of America. This county, Jefferson County, has got so many good people. And I know because you're here, you're good people. I know that. And I know it's a tough situation. But I'm not asking, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying I'm begging you. Help me. Just give me a chance.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, what we'll be doing here, Tommy and I, if this meets with the approval of the board, kind of spoke before the meeting as to kind of how we're gonna, or how we'd like to go about this. I think what we're here to do is to piece together something that we can bring to the Thursday meeting and vote on. So probably the best thing to do, unless somebody has a better idea, is for Tommy, when we start talking about the memo of understanding, to go through it paragraph by paragraph, all right? And for us to, you know, if you raise your hand, be recognized. If you want to add, change, delete something, and we can kind of do that at this meeting so that the next meeting we have a template we can vote on. Prior to that, what I think would be the best is if, I know there are people on the board, myself included, who have some questions about that I'd like to ask our providers. If they could come up and we could all take turns asking them the questions we have while they're up here, that way they don't have to come up, sit down, come up again, sit down, come up again and sit down. So does that meet everybody's approval? Okay, so at this point, what I think we'd like to do is we'd like to ask if Helen Ross McNabb has a representative, and if Allied Behavioral Health have a representative, if you could come up to the mic, and then we can go ahead and address some questions to you. And Mr. Hardy, since you were the one who brought the question of the MOU to this board a couple of meetings ago, we'll have you start with the questioning and then kind of work our way around. Kind of, you know, Danny will go next. Right up here, please. And if when you're asking questions, you'll ask whoever, you'll ask whoever, then they can.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may ask a question
Please.
to the director. I have in my hand the memorandum of understanding. You put this together along with the board attorney, correct?
Board attorney, yes,
The board attorney put this document together.
he did.
I read through it, I see no need to change it. I mean, I don't understand. And you talk about changing it tonight, this, the director of school brought us this document. We can't change anything tonight, I wouldn't think, because that's what he presented to us. So we'd have to wait till Thursday night. Somebody'd have to make a motion on this, and then if you want to change something, you'd have to make an amendment.
Well,
You can't amend this document in this.
We're not amending it. We're discussing it.
Okay, you said make changes.
No, we're discussing possible
Did
changes.
you not say make changes?
Yes.
All right, if I said it, we're discussing possible changes that could be made at the meeting
Thursday night.
Thursday night.
This is what is gonna be in our packet. I don't have anything else but this one here, prepared by the director of schools and our lawyer. And my only problem with this is, I'm not a director of schools and I'm not a lawyer. So we pay them to do this, prepare this for us. And I would do it, I don't see any need to change it. It's complicating things, you know, we'll, you know. But anyway,
Okay.
I'll speak my piece.
Right.
I'm done.
Mr. Hardy, do you have any questions or anything? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see.
I don't see any changes that need to be made. When it comes to the place that we as a school board member know more than our attorney does, and we pay our attorney big fees, and Mr. Arnold put this together. To me, this is a waste of time, somebody trying to, as an individual, to throw their authority. We have somebody in charge, we have Mr. Arnold, we have our school board attorney, which we pay a large amount of money. So why sit here and go through all this and try to change something that they recommended? And to me, it just seems like that we as an individual is trying to prove to somebody that we know more than our attorney does.
Any other discussion on this? I'm just on this question.
Yeah, first off, I think that I've actually brought up several questions to the attorney that I don't see in here that's clarified, that he would make very, made a point of making a very big statement about, and it's not clarified in the MOU. So with him saying things that aren't in the MOU, I do think there needs to be some changes, probably need to be made. To what extent, I don't know. I think that's something the board, could vote. So, and I'll be honest, nobody has to sit here all night and listen. If nobody else wants to make any changes or put input, you're welcome to get up and leave.
Is there any other discussion on this matter? Okay, Mr. Hardy, would you like to ask our provider?
Yeah, can I ask, Ms. Peak, I believe, is the one that's representing Allied? Could she come up?
Ms. Peak?
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask a question of order. We have, I think, in our policy, board members can only speak for 6 minutes when we ask for the floor.
6 minutes, 2 times.
Right.
But that's during a voting meeting.
Well, I think that would still apply here, would it not?
Well,
I mean, I'd hate for somebody to dominate the meeting for an
I
hour.
agree.
You know, what I'm saying is, in 6 minutes, and then somebody else's turn, and then if they want to speak again, they can.
Yes, that's fair.
According to Robert's Rule 4, they can do it twice, so that's 12 minutes.
That's
But not consecutive.
That's fair.
Well,
Understand?
as long as I get my answers not stonewalled, I'll be happy.
Do what, sir?
As long as my answers don't get stonewalled, then I'll be happy.
But still be 6 minutes.
Okay, let's proceed, please.
Ms. Peak, what's the most amount of students that we've had on a waiting list this year, do you know?
Off the top of my head, I was not asked to present specific numbers this evening, so I didn't bring those. At any given time, Rachel, who is our director of East Tennessee programs, is here, and so I looked to her if she's got an answer that I don't. But at the point that you figure in, looking at the specific schedule of each child, collaborating with their kind of classroom schedule, requests from the administration, all of those pieces, they're at max might be as many as 40 students on a wait list.
Okay,
Again, I can only speak to that as far as
Okay.
Allied's portion. Anything that, again, McNabb is here, I would leave that to them.
Okay, so I know for a fact at one point we had 67 kids on a waiting list to be seen. I would like to know who or what determines what kids get to be seen and who gets put on the waiting list. Is there a priority? Is there a certain crucial point that this happens?
I'm mostly trying to understand how to get you the answers you want without stonewalling in that space. In scheduling, and especially particularly when we're thinking about a wait list, part of what really determines that is time. And so then from there, secondary time becomes that student's school schedule. So my understanding is that for both programs, but for, again, particularly all I can speak for is Allied, we we work with the administration, we sit down with school counselors, we map out where is the best to like remove a child from the day for services. Generally speaking, that is during specials. And so if this is a child in fifth grade, and every fifth grade spot's already booked, then we're gonna look at like what is acuity of need, and then from there make a decision. So if this is a child who maybe has been referred to us, who has some type of additional support outside of the school system, got referred for maybe the loss of a pet, and that spot's booked, there's a possibility we're gonna put them on federal levels.
Okay, thank you. What happens with these students that are seeing that during, say, school break, fall break, spring break, do they not get seen by you all?
So we engage each parent, so every family gets both phone calls and emails and letters. We send out like contacts via mail. We have a number of families who don't have email. We have some families who also don't have the ability to access a phone. So we phone calls, snail mail, whatever it takes, we'll reach out to them, and they have the option to choose. So we do offer services during breaks, during the summer. For our kids who are on the wait list, we do also offer for them to come to the office if that's most convenient for a family. And that family always chooses what is best for them and their situation.
So they can either come down, or if it's not convenient for them, then what happens? They don't-
Define convenient.
Well, you're the one that said convenient for that family.
I said what is most convenient for them. So in that, I
Right.
would like to
So
do
if it's
that.
not most convenient for them to come down, what happens to these students?
Then the parent makes the choice that they wait.
Okay. So they potentially could go all summer and not come and see you.
If the family makes that choice, yes.
Is your operation open at your Jefferson City? Is it open throughout the whole day?
We're open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. How many of these kids are diagnosed with emotionally disturbed?
So an emotional disturbance is a category under IEPs. That's a definition under IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act. So that emotional disturbance in the world of mental health doesn't have a meaning. So for us, we function out of what's generally referred to as a medical model. So the way that we do things lines up with like pediatricians, or lines up with like, your standard primary care physician. It doesn't really line up with the way that schools categorize those things. Under the way that the system at large is set up, in order to provide services of any kind under a mental health designation, there has to be a diagnosis code. But as this means an emotional disturbance, that language doesn't exist.
Okay, so is there a doctor that the mental health agency has to practice under?
So every licensed mental health facility in the state of Tennessee has to have they refer to them as like an advising psychiatrist. You have to have an MD on staff. So yes, we do.
Okay. So are your therapy sessions, are they to help with behaviors?
Therapy sessions at large, and so let's back up for a second and kind of level set on some wording here. So when we think about mental health at large, mental health really, for us, is defined as this opportunity to love well and grow well. And so mental health services then are everything that connects to how we help children and adults and families love well and grow well. And so within that kind of mental health system, sometimes we're quick to connect that there's a behavior to an issue. In the mental health world, we often talk about what are called externalizing behaviors versus internalizing. So an externalizing behavior would be like, our sweet kiddo today who bit somebody at school and we got a phone call about it. And so that's an externalizing behavior, right? It goes outward. Internalizing behaviors are things that we often see like anxiety, where it gets contained and maybe it doesn't show up in a big way. So when we think about internalizing behaviors, what we'll often see are the kiddo in the 6th grade classroom who got a 94 on their math test and then cried all the way through lunch. Or the child who's been incredibly withdrawn and depressed and hasn't really made a friend for the entirety of their 9th grade year. We'll often then see those internalizing behaviors if they go untreated for significant amounts of time, to then really kind of move towards things like self-injurious behavior or suicidal ideation. But all of that exists on a spectrum, and what could be a quote-unquote behavior really is what is disrupting the life of that individual.
So you only deal with the internal behavior parts, right?
No, again, it's across a continuum, and so what we would consider a behavior could look like lots of things.
Okay, so, what qualifications or degree does a therapist that comes into our school, or what are they required to have?
So again, I can only speak for Allied.
That's all I'm asking, yeah.
There are requirements under the state, as a like designated licensed mental health facility with the state, of what is required around, general expectations for education. For Allied, all of our clinicians have a master's degree in a mental health discipline that is licensure eligible, meaning that they are on track to complete licensure through the process required by the state of Tennessee.
Okay, but nobody's actually a BCBA then, correct?
We don't do ABA services.
Okay, so ABA services is the external side of
Nope,
behaviors.
two totally separate spectrums of services. So ABA generally are provided by BCBA, so those are board certified behavioral analysts, or what are called RBT, so the registered behavior technicians. So ABA is a service that is provided generally to folks where there's been some developmental delays, or that may be a kiddo who's on the autism spectrum. We'll also see ABA with kiddos where there may have been like some type of medical complexity where they've been hospitalized for extensive periods of time, so whether that's early childhood cancer, those types of things. Those services are not considered under the state of Tennessee to be inherently under the behavioral health system. So they're a whole separate thing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you why you actually had Behavioral Health Solutions as your name. So my child, we receive ABA, okay? And I would go a lot further with the behavioral side of things, because a lot of these kids do show behaviors outwardly, okay? And by doing so let me ask you this. If a child is showing a behavior, an outward behavior, how do you guys deal with that? Like, as far as how do you, I mean, what is your success rate on dealing with that behavior that's gonna stop, to make it stop?
I turn around and get my phone, I pull the data on what our success rate on impact is. We track that. We track that using a series of standardized, validated screeners. We do that at what's called an aggregate level, which means we look at every child, not what does this look like for 10-year-old Dr. Arnold, right? We're looking at it at a programmatic level of what our impact is. And so if I turn around and grab my phone, I can give you a specific.
I'm not looking for the exact rate, I'm just saying to make things, to make a child successful in not producing these behaviors anymore though. I mean, you don't actually, to address the actual behavior, you have to address the problem at hand, right? But if the problem is at home, which I would probably say most of these problems stem from, either something that dealt with at home, triggers, but you're dealing with this in the school system. How are you getting inside the house to do this?
So every situation and every family is really different. The reality is that we're always looking at what is the story of this student in this family in this generational context within the greater community. We do utilize what are referred to as evidence-based practices. Again, ABA is its own kind of stream of service provision. But so we do things like TFCBT or AFCBT. We also use a curriculum called Target. All of those are approved through SAMHSA's clearinghouse for evidence-based practices, so they meet federal best practice guidelines. Within those, one of the key components that we really are very intentional about is ongoing collaboration and communication with families. So we're constantly in communication, again, email, phone. We often will set up family sessions on breaks or after hours. But really, the honest truth is that kids spend the majority of their day at school. This is where children are, and not everything that we see is connected back to the family. You know, one of the major things that's in front of this community, but also like the large part of East Tennessee and Southwest Virginia and Eastern Kentucky really is a multi-generational opioid crisis. You know, for those of us who've been here for a really long time, like we well remember when that hit, right? I was in high school. I can tell you stories on stories about what it looked like when it hit and what that's meant. And you know, today I was kind of thinking through and processing with some folks out of state of like what it means for the parents of my generation who've been generation 1 of that opioid crisis, right? Which makes my generation, generation 2. My nephews are late high school, they're generation 3. We're coming up quickly on generation 4, a very significant opioid exposure to this community. So a lot of the kids that we're seeing within the school setting may not very well be with their biological parents. A lot of them are with grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, foster placements, that we really are doing multi-generational community-focused work to really support and address the impact of what years of large corporations taking advantage of folks in this region have done.
Mr. Hart, could you ask one more question, then we'll come back?
Sure, if somebody else wants to ask some questions, I can.
No, I'm saying, go ahead and ask one more question, then we'll move on, and then come back.
So is it common practice for the therapist to text or call students, and let's just say they're the minors, 17 or under, without parental knowledge outside of school?
It is ABHS policy that our
ABA what?
ABHS.
Oh, ABA, okay.
It's ABHS policy that personal phone numbers of staff are not to be shared with families and or minors. And at the point that we become aware that that's occurred, that's an incident for termination.
Okay, because it has happened in the past.
I couldn't comment on that one way or the other.
I know it has.
Okay.
And, okay, good.
No, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Mr. Martin, do you have any questions? Any questions, Coach?
They have it. That's it.
Well,
Well, maybe.
Bill,
I had nothing to start with.
Ms. Mayor?
So, you said that roughly there's like on a waiting list around 40-something students, right?
Again, I can't pull that number immediately off the top of my head. That would be a general average.
Is that something you can get us later?
I think we did provide that in the previous, but I think that was a snapshot at that moment in time. And so again, that changes. We're constantly working. Again, we're working to see what we can do to pull kids into community-based services, outpatient services, that seeing them in the school when that's not an option. Because there are definitely situations where families will say this is our preference, and that's not always our criteria. So we're constantly working to either like refer out, get folks in other situations, get them to outpatient, if need be, get them to intensive in-home. And so again, we're constantly working to get that number down.
All right, do you happen to kind of have an idea of roughly how many students are being seen right now?
Off the top of my head, in this moment, at the time that school ended, for Allied, it was close to 400.
Okay.
Which if I am correct, is a roughly 5% of the student body population across Jeff County.
Okay.
The national average for access to mental health services is about 10. So it's significantly lower than national average.
All right, do you happen to kind of have an idea of how many families, not looking for personal information, but how many families who do not have email to reach them by,
I do not know that off the top of my
or
head.
phone number?
Again, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head. On average, out of those 400, if we're sending out snail mail, probably 150.
Okay. Let's see here, so, of the 400, do you know, I know this is a lot of numbers, so, what is roughly the number of internal behavioral students?
What do you mean by internal?
Well, you said that there's internal and external behavioral.
Internalized behaviors and externalized behaviors. Right, we only use that as a term for like conceptualizing that continuum of what you might see
Mhm.
from folks who are struggling in that place of loving well and growing well. That's not really a thing that like would ever be counted anywhere of like, what does that look like? So like that isn't typically used for tracking.
All right, so, you also mentioned that your clinicians, they have to have a master's degree as required by the state.
Master's degree in a mental health discipline in a licensed eligible field.
Okay. Is there any way to, like, where we could see where they got their master degrees from? Or is it through the state?
Their master's degrees.
I'm sorry, not through the state, but I mean, is there a way to take a look at where they got their degrees from? Can we see that information?
That would be a question that I would be open to our attorney reviewing with the school
Okay.
board's attorney. I think there are some pieces there we'd want to really
Right.
check on, like HR law and what that
Mhm.
looks like.
Okay, all right.
So I won't say no, but I think everybody would want some more information on that.
All right, so, agreed. You said evidence-based practices. Can you go into more detail with that?
So evidence-based practices are defined as a modality that has been tested against a controlled trial group. Meaning, at the end of the day, did this modality prove statistically better than doing nothing? So the federal government under SAMHSA keeps a clearinghouse, that's what they call it, like if you Google SAMHSA clearinghouse, it'll come up. That clearinghouse lists a number of kind of well-researched, well-indicated modalities for supporting children and youth and families and adults. It's a really broad resource. So that is the way that the federal government, and I think that was initially done, I think that came out in 2018, so it was just pre-COVID, that clearinghouse was published in a way that the federal government really said, like, these are the things that we believe have been effective and that the federal government was willing to say we'll put money to. Now, in that space, that doesn't really dictate, like the state of Tennessee doesn't require the use of those evidence-based practices, but that's a standard internally that Allied really tries to align ourselves with, is to make sure that we're meeting that higher expectation.
Okay. So during summer break, and this is probably my last question for now, so let's see here. So during summer break, you said that some families, if they choose, they can come to your office. What about any families that don't have insurance or things like that, and they're low income or something? So how are those students still seen? Are they charged anything, or are there any grants that help cover on any offset costs or anything like that?
So for the last 2 years, Allied has been funded under a Department of Human Services grant to cover all of the costs above and beyond what is insurance reimbursable for students in Jefferson County. And so that meant if a student didn't have insurance, or if a student had private insurance and a copay, that they didn't pay anything out of pocket. Under the state's like policies around Medicaid, children on Medicaid can never be charged for anything. Like, we couldn't even sell them a sticker. So in that space, those kids always are able to access services and are never held to a cost. There is for families still the issue of, we do virtual services for if families prefer, and they have Wi-Fi and a computer and an email address. So that really is not a fit for many families. It's also not a fit for every child. There are a number of reasons we would not do telebehavioral health with every kid. But in those situations, families still have to like take time off work, pay for the gas. I mean, it's an hour appointment, so they're gonna have at least a 30-minute drive in, 30-minute drive out. It's a 2-hour commitment from families. And so that has its own associated costs that are not directly associated with what we may bill to insurance or bill to a family.
So I'm curious, if there's a family, say in Hamlin County, that would like to come and use your services, do they not qualify for any type of grants or anything like that?
They don't qualify for any type of grants. They're more than welcome to come and access outpatient services on their insurance. So again, they may have Medicaid, they might have Aetna, or any myriad of things, but they would not qualify for the grant that has covered Jefferson County schools to offset out-of-pocket costs to families.
So yours is specifically around Jefferson County schools?
It is a multi-pathway, but very specific to Jefferson County. So it covers the school program, it covers intensive outpatient services, which occur not at school, and then also covers costs for some kiddos who don't have insurance to access other things. But again, that's above and beyond just the school piece.
That is provided if you're in our schools, right?
No, it's provided if you live in this
Just
county.
specifically in this county?
Okay.
Okay. But, does not extend to any outside counties whatsoever?
Not for that grant, correct.
Are there other grants that would allow you guys to be able to accept people from other counties?
That is a very large question with not an easy answer. If you're a 22-year-old who's just out of college and working a job making more than $40,000, no. If you are a 3-year-old receiving pediatric services in Claiborne County, yes. So there are multiple pathways in which things can be worked, but there are clear kind of stipulations of what can be done.
Okay.
But again, that's every family calls, we talk through with them, we talk about what their options are,
Thank you.
highly individualized.
Okay, I do have a minor, more procedural questions, all right? Something I'd kind of like to know. And maybe Dr. Arnold, if this question would be, what I'd like to know is kind of what's our procedure from the time that a teacher identifies a student with a behavioral problem to the time that it is referred and taken over by one of our behavioral service providers. So, you know, let's say Jimmy is identified as having behavioral problems. What happens at that point? Kind of what's the procedure in the school at that point?
So are we referring them to mental health, or are we
Yes.
talking about, okay,
For
so
mental
mental
health. I'm
health.
sorry.
Okay. So a student is referred, a form is filled out by a school employee, and then that comes to kind of the office administrative type guidance counselor, principal, and then they reach out to the parent and notify the parent that a reason for referral and recommendations. We let them know options. We have a list of providers within the surrounding area that we give them, and then we just kind of wait and see. But we do make a referral to, the referrals made to Allied if they so choose that, or we have parents who choose other providers
Right.
off that list also.
So.
But a lot of times we don't know what the parents may do.
Sure.
Sometimes we don't.
So, I'm just making sure I get this down. A youngster is identified with a behavioral problem. The teacher or the school employee who notices that, at that point fills out a form indicating kind of what the problem is. And then
Yeah, they complete a referral
a
form.
referral form. And then that referral form goes to the administrative office. The administrative office notifies the parents. Parents come in and the problem is explained to them. Then at that point, we indicate that we think that, you know, the youngster needs help and provide the parent with options for help.
Yes, so we either send a referral on to Allied, or some of them say, you know, I have a provider, or some of them say, you know, I don't want to pursue this at school. Do you
Right.
have any other recommendations? So, you know, we have a list of providers that we,
I guess my question is, we don't refer the youngster to anybody until the parents give us approval to do that.
that's correct.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I'm.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and this could be for anybody, Allied, McNabb, from the point that you receive a referral, a parent saying, okay, I understand the problem, I want, you know, Jill or John seen by somebody. At that point, that you actually kind of take them under your wing, what happens at that point? What is the procedure as far as, I don't want to get into specific treatment, but as far as scheduling them, you know, setting up a regular schedule for them to be counseled, I mean, kind of what's the situation there? Yeah, well, you know, why don't you come on up? I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Mary, and this is Shelley. She's
Mary and
also
Shelley.
with
Thank you.
McNabb Center.
Thank you for
She'll
being
have
here.
much more of the specific detail, but generally, when we get a referral, we do an assessment. That can either happen in our office. Our master's level staff, much like Allison's, are mobile, so we can actually go out to the home. A big part of what we do is incorporate the family piece. So you don't see services stop over school breaks or long breaks over the summer or during holidays, and we're constantly engaging the family. We can't do that assessment without the family component. So we're gathering at that point of referral. We are explaining our services. Of course, we're only in 3 schools, is that correct? So, you know, if we got a referral from one of those schools, we would say, here are your options. What's most convenient for you. We are also flexible with our hours. We operate from 8 to 5, but our staff can work from 10 to 7. It just depends. We really accommodate whatever the family needs. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you know, speak, any divergence from that as far as your?
Not particularly, and I would echo, you know, the way that general process works. There's some real like specific state like requirements within TCA and also within the Department of Mental Health policies and procedures of like, you have to have significant parental or guardian consent before you can move forward in those. We are required every year to do the assessment piece that Ms. Katsikas was talking about. You're required to do a process called a treatment plan every 6 months. It's where you sit down again with the family and say, like, what do you think? How's it going? What's working? What's not? Let's continue to collaborate. Let's like recalibrate what we're working on. Those forms have to be recompleted annually, so they're only good legally for 364 days. And so, yeah, that process looks really, really similar across the state.
When you say those forms, are you talking about the parental consent forms? or-
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, any releases of information, any, yeah, all of that documentation is only good 364 days.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies things for me a little bit. Do either of your firms provide telehealth services?
Yes, telehealth is an option.
Okay, that is an option. And do you, same question. Do you?
Yes, I referenced virtual earlier, so yes, we absolutely
You do?
would. Yeah.
Okay, and in your opinion, is there really any major difference as far as results from if someone, for whatever reason, needs to be counseled via telehealth versus treated versus in-person appointments?
There are clinical reasons that we might very well prefer one over the other. You know, there are definite, depending on a child's age, telehealth gets quite complex. It's not that it's insurmountable, but it's really difficult. You kind of turn into Miss Rachel, like on camera. There are also situations where depending on the cognitive functioning of a child, also depending on the potential like circumstances within a home. I can think of a kid in Middle Tennessee we saw years ago who was like one of 8 foster children in a 2-bedroom house that also functioned as a family child care center. That wasn't going to work, right? So there are definite factors in making decisions. So there's the availability, but again, those are decisions that we make in conjunction with the caregiver of what they feel like is best. And we also definitely have families who are strictly on outpatient, who do both. They might do virtual this week and in-person next week. They might, majority of the time, be in-person and then occasionally opt for virtual based on scheduling.
So at least in your case, it's not one or the other, they can
It's
be
not one
mixed.
or the other.
All right.
Ours can be mixed too, but it's not the preferred method. You know, a lot of these kids struggle with isolation already. There's just a variety of things that come along with telehealth. If we do have a family that has the resources to even do a telehealth session, we limit those around. I mean, it's very important to have that face-to-face interaction. It's very important to be in environments where people are comfortable, like their homes, like schools, like the office, to really get a feel for, acquainted with, and build relationships with people. Doing that through a television or monitor is not the preferred method to do that.
So that's kind of a fallback position.
Yes, and if someone's ill, if they're sick and still want to do their session, we'll use telehealth for that. If it's going to be detrimental that they miss their session. So there's a variety of ways we can incorporate telehealth. It's just not our preferred method.
Okay, thank you.
We prefer not to do that in school either,
Okay,
just because, you know, these kids, some, you know, you do have some kids who have traumatic past. And, you know, a lot of times we can't leave a child in a room alone, depending on the age. So to pay an employee to sit in there and listen to some child's traumatic past is not usually.
I was thinking more during vacation periods and things like that. Okay, last question. Where are you, as I understand, for ongoing care, all right? Where are you as far as helping out during like emergencies, something that happens at school that we need somebody, you know, of your knowledge to intervene? Ms. Peak, I noticed on your website it says you are not a crisis response center, and that ABHS therapists are not available for emergency crisis calls. Would this preclude you or folks from McNabb from, and your on-site therapists from helping out in emergencies at school?
No. So crisis response under the state definition is a specific thing, and often refers either to services. There are a number of crisis providers across the state, and those are people who are their whole job is to be on call to go out when there is consideration of like an imminent threat. Often, not always, often those services get used like if somebody's threatening to harm themselves. Allied does not provide those services. We're not contracted with the state to do that. We also don't have what are referred to as crisis stabilization units. So those are specific locations. They are buildings that are intended to defer from psychiatric hospitalization. We also don't have a crisis stabilization unit. That is what that language refers to. So we're legally required to indicate that we don't provide those services. But historically, I can think of a number of situations over the years in which there have been deaths of a teacher, death of a student, significant incidents within a building where we will reorient our clinicians for the day, pull them in order to be available on site for whether that is teachers who need to debrief, whether that is students who may be quite upset.
Okay, so I guess the question is you can be on site and help out during emergencies.
Yeah, but again, I would let McNabb speak to that.
So we are part of the mobile crisis response team across this, in this particular area, East and Upper East. So we do have mobile crisis clinicians that can come out and respond, do assessments, and determine what's needed after the assessment is done. We also, our clinicians can definitely respond in situations where the school feels like they need a little bit more support. And then around 5 years ago, we developed what we call a TRP team that is specific to school trauma that's occurred. So if you have a suicide of a student, if you have a death of a teacher, if you've just had a community situation that's gone on that's impacted a certain school community or multiple schools, we have a team of professionals that are trained in that trauma approach that can come out to the school and do a variety of different things around training, individual short-term kind of talk counseling at the time that the situation happened, We can do some stuff with the staff or adults that are associated with that school and or the situation. So we have a variety of ways that we can respond.
Great, thank you.
And we do have CSUs.
That ends my question. Mr. Hardy, you said you wanted to ask more?
Yep. So, sorry, I'm gonna ask, you said you do have a mobile
Yes.
unit? Allied, you do not have a mobile unit.
Define
do?
mobile, like, we do not provide mobile crisis services. That's
We
a
do.
contract, and yes, McNabb absolutely. So that's a difference between the two of us. That's a specific contract service under the state.
That is all that team does, is
Yep.
go out and respond to, typically clients that are homicidal or suicidal in nature, and they do a thorough assessment and determine what type of treatment, whether it's acute hospitalization, long-term hospitalization, just a variety of different services that could help that individual move on.
So it's not in a crisis situation, it would be just, it's a mobile unit though to, like say a student over the summer, and parents both work, and they can't make it to a brick and mortar to get therapy. Is that the kind of mobile unit you're talking about?
No,
Okay.
I'm talking about people that are mobile and can respond in a jail, in a detention center, in a school, in a home, in a park,
Okay,
under a bridge,
okay.
yeah. Physical people.
So I just have a couple more questions, and it can be for both of you. So what is the earliest that you do, the companies do therapy for kids? What's the earliest age?
So we cover every age across the lifespan. With that very much also includes very young children.
What is that, what's the age?
Youngest we've ever seen is probably 4 months old.
You do mental health therapy for a 4-month-old?
Services for children in that age range, and I would love to take all the time in the world to talk about this. That is my area of passion.
How does the kid respond?
So in those situations, those are family-centered services. So specifically the situation I'm thinking of where we've had several in this place where we're looking at really young children. Those are kiddos who are at high risk of either being removed for foster care or that are placed in foster care. We often see really graphic and intense physical abuse if they're coming to services at that age, or there's been some really profound neglect. And so with that, they come with their families. So that service and working through that child opens up pathways of treatment for that family in order to be able to allow for reunification, placement stabilization, and to keep kids with their parents in their communities, in their homes. And those services really are about making sure that this kiddo is seen and heard. Even at a very young age, we will see situations of severe trauma, that you'll have infants who will projectile vomit hundreds of times a day. They're going to need a caregiver who's got a lot of support in order to be able to regulate with that. You'll see kids as young as 10 months old who will engage in self-biting to the point that they'll bleed. It takes a lot of support for a family to be able to figure out how to navigate and to help that kiddo to engage effectively when they live through some really big, horrific things.
So you really give therapy to the family?
It's a family-based model, yes.
I'm really trying to have a hard time grasping how you do therapy for a 4-month-old or a 6-month-old. I have an 8.5-month-old granddaughter that can speak, and I mean,
Yeah.
I get they show certain things. Believe me, I understand. Very well aware of, kids go through things even as infants. Okay. But what I want to know is okay. So let me rephrase this. What's the earliest age you see kids one-on-one?
So my answer to that would be that we don't just primarily see kids one-on-one. We are always seeing kids with a family component. So we have a multitude of different programs that can start as early as 2. We have a family-based model like what Allison was describing, that is very much about bonding and attachment with the younger infant. So there's a multitude of different types of,
You're talking about between the mother and the baby?
or the foster mom, and I mean, there's all kinds
You're
of
talking about the
situations.
parent, not the therapist and the baby?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I would hesitate to ever say that we only see children individually.
But when you see, you guys see our children in school one-on-one.
Yeah, but for us in particular, we also include families in that reach, in that, there's family treatment that's associated with that. It's not just individual. Even though we see them in the school individually, yes, but we've always got the parents with
What I
them.
wanna know is, what is the youngest age children you see one-on-one? And I understand you work with the parents and families too, maybe on a different day or afterwards. One-on-one, what is the earliest age setting that you work with a child, one-on-one? A therapist goes into a room, one-on-one with a child.
We have a therapeutic preschool, so we can see a 4-year-old one-on-one.
So the earliest
We
is 4
have
years old.
a regional intervention program, and we can see a 2-year-old
One-on-one.
Mhm.
I would echo that again, in places like different programs do different things. Allied's so, and I think there's a lot of, I would offer there's a lot of similarities in McNabb's vision and approaches there is to Allied's in places that are really emphasizing family. That 8-year-olds are terrible agents of change, and so it really does take the space of like having everybody involved. For us, it's gonna be kindergarten. Again, we don't have the RIP program, we don't have some of those other pieces, and so for us, it'll be kindergarten.
Okay. Do either of you do perinatal therapy?
I like the both.
Both do. You do too?
I mean,
Do you guys refer out to Planned Parenthood at all for any reason? Or not?
There's two pieces to that question.
It's a yes or no answer. Do you guys work with Planned Parenthood at any point during perinatal therapy session?
There would be nothing that we would refer for.
So the answer is no?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't work with Planned Parenthood in that situation then?
No,
Okay.
there's not even like, there's no situation in which that is even a possibility.
I'm saying no, I'm going on record saying no, but I'm gonna also confirm over here
Okay.
that there's not
Yeah,
been
no,
a
there's
situation.
not, there's not.
Understand I'm being recorded.
I'm not gonna hold you to the fire.
Okay,
I just,
okay.
it is just
I
a
was-
couple other questions I had, that's all. So the answer's no?
That's it.
Okay, okay. That's all the questions I have, believe it or not.
Does anybody, does anybody have any follow-up questions based upon any of the questions that have been answered? Ms. Mayor.
Yeah, so am I understanding correctly that the mobile unit is specific to crisis intervention? Is that right?
Yes, our mobile crisis unit that sends individuals out.
Okay.
Yes.
I will say we also have a mobile unit that serves Jeff County. So I don't know if that you may have seen that and be getting confused. It's in Jeff County one day a week at the Family Justice Center. So it's an outpatient clinic,
Okay.
just like we have in Hamlin Severe, and anybody birth through geriatric can come in there and get outpatient medication services and individual therapy services.
So not specific to just crisis?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's more of your outpatient on
Yeah.
wheels.
All right.
Yeah.
Now you also said, the one-on-one, includes a family component. What does that mean specifically?
So our school-based, talking about school-based
Yeah,
services
school-based.
and some of our outpatient services, I mean, we have a variety, we have a very large continuum, especially when it comes to kids. But our school-based services in particular always have a family component. So we'll go out to the home or meet the family at a coffee shop, a park, a library, wherever it is that they feel comfortable. If they don't feel comfortable us going out to their home. But we try to do that at least once a month with every family that we serve. So if we're seeing a kid on our caseload individually, we are constantly engaging or trying to engage that family to do that family component. Change agents are the families. So we have to help them understand what's happening, what they're dealing with, how to interpret that, so we can make family progress.
So family component does not necessarily mean there's a family member in the room with the student, with the clinician. Correct.
Not for every contact, but there would definitely be in a family component, we are talking about that there's going to be, well, I have the privilege of having good knowledge of McNabb's work, and so with that, forgive me in the weed, but in that space, like Allied is really looking at, we wanna talk to the family on the phone, we want emails about what was hard on Friday night, we are gonna have them come to the office and sit down, we're gonna do virtual on their lunch hour, we're gonna see family member and kiddo together in a room. And so family component means that not every session is that caregiver there, but they are active members of the process. This is their child.
So if the parent wants to be, I know that not all parents can do this, but there are some parents that do not work, and they could be there if they wanted to be. And if they wanted to be sitting in a therapy session, and it's school-based, during the hour or however long these sessions are, can that parent be there?
My answer would be, as long as the school administration doesn't have a reason, again, schools have very different, like, who gets in the front door and who's allowed in what part of the building, but that wouldn't be an Allied decision. We'd check with everybody first.
So here's what I'd say, is we are super flexible. As long as it's not going to hinder or provide some kind of HIPAA violation, we are very flexible. We are in 120 schools across 18 different districts. So we know that each district, we know that each school is different, we know that each administration is different. We know that flexibility is key. So if that's what a school needs, if that's what a family needs, then we're willing to do that. We're willing to work with the school, make sure that there's the least disruption possible in the education process, and make it work. We've done it for 33 years. We know that we are part of that system. We're just a piece of that larger system. We are coming into somebody else's territory. So we understand that. And I think our end goal is the same thing, is to see these kids progress educationally, and if they're not well emotionally, they're not going to progress educationally. We know that.
Is there anything in our school that would prevent a family member from being able to sit in on one of those sessions? Or maybe all of them?
There's not anything that would prevent it. I mean, there's things that would prevent it if they don't, I mean, we have all sorts of family members. We have some parents who have to call the school and ahead of time and state their reason for coming. I mean, for the majority of parents, no, as long as they didn't just pop in 5 minutes late, want to run down there and be in the building unsupervised. So we just don't turn parents loose in our building.
So if they happen to be in the area and they're like, oh, my student's going to be seeing that therapist or that clinician in about, 15 minutes. Let me see if I can get in there so I can be a part of that process.
Yeah, we would allow that.
You would allow that?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have another question, but it just kind of flipped right out of my mind.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. I have a follow-up question. Is McNabb, you mentioned you're at 3 schools. Which schools are those?
My list up, sorry. We're at Jefferson High School right now and Patriot Academy, but we have, they're staffed. And then we have Jefferson Academy and Jefferson Middle, we have those schools, but that's vacant right now.
Okay, and are you only at 3 schools because we as a school district have only asked you to be at those 3 schools, or because you don't have the manpower to really do anything, we'd be at any more schools?
So the Department of Mental Health funded 3 positions specifically for Jefferson County schools. When we are awarded a new funding for a new staff member, we go to the schools, we go to the administration and say, what schools would you like us in?
Gotcha.
And that's what directs where we go.
And that funding comes directly to you from the Department of Health?
Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse
It
Services.
does not come from the school district, from a grant that we get?
No.
Okay, all right, understood. And I believe that was my only other question. Did you find?
I remember. So, in the event that, okay, first of all, are the school-based therapy sessions, do they remain fixed on the same day and time? All the time, or do they kind of vary?
We try to do that for consistency's sake in our outpatient clinics and with school-based, but that's gonna waver based off what's happening in the school. So TCAPs, that's gonna be different. Like we try to take those things into consideration because we don't wanna disrupt the child in a main class, an important class that they might not be doing well in. So that may change, but we do try to keep it consistent because the child's gonna remember better if it's the same time every week, rather than wondering, am I gonna get therapy this week, am I not? So we try to keep it that consistent.
For Allied's process and procedure, we're meeting frequently. We aim for every week, but again, that varies based on schedule. But we aim for every week to meet with school counselors to be triple checking that the schedule that has been set out for students continues to work. So we do want it to be a consistent day and a consistent time. But there are times where this kiddo has made progress and they don't need to be seen as often, and so we're gonna make some changes. Or it may be that midway through the year, they've had an elective change, and so we're gonna negotiate and make some changes. And so changes are made in a place of both flexibility, but also clear communication with the school. And again, every school in its own place. Yeah.
Are parents notified immediately if there is a change?
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, okay. And if a parent cannot be there physically, is there any kind of like option to have the parent conferenced in during the session?
If they want to attend the session and they can't
be there in person, but they want to be conferenced in during their child's session, during the one-on-one session, during school-based session.
Yes, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Again, to Dr. Arnold's comment, it would be a very rare, very specific situation in which we would say no. Like, this parent's currently on a restraining order and can't have
Oh, yeah.
contact. Like, that's gonna be a no. But it would be a very random situation where we would tell a parent no.
Okay.
And I will say, from our perspective, it very rarely does that happen, that a parent requests to be seen with their child in the school, because our therapists are communicating with those parents all the time. You know, they're updating them on how the therapy session went. So the parents already feel that they're included. We very rarely have a parent who says, I need to be in their therapy session. They know that communication is open and the therapist is checking on them. Are there new behaviors that you're seeing at home? Is there anything we need to be aware of? And then following up after those therapy sessions. So very rarely do parents request that, but if they do, we would make it happen as much as possible.
Okay. And one last question. Do you ever run into a situation where, or maybe you do, maybe you don't, the student is, let's say, 16 or 17, and the parent says, I want to be included in this therapy session, but the student says they don't want to, then what?
I think that happens quite often, to be honest with you. And it takes the therapist having a very open conversation with the parents and the student as to why it's valuable to have them in. But you can't exclude the parent from all of the child's care. So there are things that 16, 17-year-old are going to say they're confidential, but helping them understand that they're a family unit and that child needs their parent to be supportive, and so the therapist can help their parent be supportive. And the child needs to know that they can rely on that parent. And so including them, just like Mary and Allison were saying, the family unit is very important. So the therapist really has to figure out with that particular parent how they can make that happen. But you don't want that child to not get the services. You know, if they're saying they want the services, then you've got to figure out a way, how can I include this parent so this child can get services, but also that student feel like this is a safe place for them.
And if there's that disconnect there, then something's going on.
Yes.
Well, and I'm referring to like a healthy parent, okay, not one that's like in the system or anything
Yeah.
like that. but like where a child might be shy and maybe they're concerned about their parent finding out something, you know? And the student maybe doesn't want the parent there, but the parent's the one paying the bills.
I would say to that, my mentor often used the phrase, it's grist for the mill, right? Like everything becomes something that you put in that you're gonna get out. And so if that's the situation, like, to what Mary said, like, that means that is the problem, right? Of like, you don't want them here, and you do, and now we've got to talk about it, the three of us, and we're not talking about anything else until we figure out this. The idea of family discord with teenagers is pretty common, but I would say it's rare that we have a family who like really locks down on both sides and can't come to a conversation where we figure it out.
Okay,
Thanks.
let's wrap up the questions. Thank you very, very much for being here. We sure appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hardy, one question.
Yeah, just in your qualifications to have a therapist to hire, because I understand we have some, we have 7, right? I'm trying to figure out, we have 7, and then we have one school that's not having, do we all have all of our schools covered with therapists then?
Across both organizations, to my understanding, yes. And there are a couple of the schools that we really collaborate on quite effectively.
Okay. The high school, I imagine, is probably one of them. Okay. So in order, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I know how hard it is to keep employment sometimes, especially in the healthcare world. The turnover rate, though, do we have a high turnover rate with therapists coming in and out?
For Allied, what I can speak to, one of the great benefits I think for our team is that we have a couple of like fully licensed folks. It's really difficult in the state of Tennessee to meet the requirements for licensure. You have to pass exams, you have to show all kinds of like continuing education. I mean, the number of like background checks and all the things you have to do. And so we've got folks on our team who have been here since we began collaborating with Jefferson County. That's pretty remarkable to have a therapist in a position for 7 years. August will be 7 years. That's a big deal. So our turnover rate, again, speaking for us, is pretty stable. I will also say to that, in that place, behavioral health, to give you all context, the workforce lifespan of a behavioral health clinician across the U.S. is 18 months before they generally turn over to another job. So when I say we've had staff who are here for 7 years, that's significant.
Yeah.
Okay, could you answer that question, and that'll be the last question, all right?
Yeah,
You have to-
Well,
so,
I got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Y'all-
Go ahead, please answer that. Go ahead.
so I would say our turnover rate is probably not high because our vacancy rate has been high. So we've had more vacant positions than we have had filled for quite some time. But once we've been able to get them filled, our folks have been able to stay there. I mean, would you agree with that?
Coach?
My question may have been answered, but where's the line when during a therapy session that you see the need to involve law enforcement
So part of the role of behavioral
or
health.
administration? Because I know
Those
this
are
happened
different things.
at one of our schools.
Yeah. Those are two different answers. Part of the role of behavioral health services is to really work so that we don't get there, right? Part of what our job is to provide folks with the skills they need to deal with life on life's terms, and that includes young children. When we talk about thinking about adult mental health services, or particularly substance use, what they will often say is, if I had the skills I needed as a child, I would have had other options besides this path that has led to like pretty significant drug use. So our job is to keep that in a place where we don't need to call law enforcement or school administration. For us, there are going to be processes of we're going to start making calls internally of like, hey, this kid's really escalated. And so our team internally is going to be coaching that clinician of like, have you tried this? Have you done this? What's your concern, right? or this kiddo's really making a threat that's homicidal or suicidal, and we're gonna be coaching from our supervisors of like, what have you asked, what have you done? At the point we can't keep someone safe and it's clear there's an imminent risk, we're gonna start notifying people.
Okay. Would you
Same
like to
here.
respond to that?
It's the same. If there's an imminent risk, then we're gonna get the appropriate, either authorities involved, the mobile crisis unit, to determine what we need to do. But if there's a specific threat to the school, to anything like that, we are gonna notify.
So
We're
your
not gonna wait.
therapists have been trained to know when that child possibly crossed the line,
Absolutely.
or maybe have already crossed the line.
Absolutely.
Or even if they're pushing
y'all
the
are
line.
obligated.
When it comes to an imminent threat and people's lives are in danger, that's a different,
I mean, we're here, I mean, starting with 1997, I guess it was, school shootings, or, I don't know, I don't understand. I grew up in a different time, and, I guess counseling might have, but those people may not have, enrolled in counseling, say. As a thing, it's something hard to identify. So that gets to my question, you've answered it, your people are really trained, and they know, right?
And I would say this board is well aware that there was an incident in which one of our team recognized that, knew what the concern was, called the appropriate folks, really notified administration, and again, this board is aware that there was a very different tomorrow because of that.
Yes, thank you,
Sheriff and the principal spoke about that.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from, especially those who didn't have any? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on. In the
Mr. Chair,
next,
I have a question for Dr. Arnold.
sure.
Do our doors, these therapy rooms, do they have windows, like a security window, or are they completely closed off?
I mean, we have I would say the majority of our doors within the school system have a sight window in them. If I had to, today, if we build a new school, we would not have that sight window indoors, just due for safety reasons, in that sight window can be broken out. Then someone can, if someone, active shooters, especially active shooter drill, you shoot that out, you reach in there and pop the handle and you're in. So, but for today's world, the majority, I would say 90% of our doors that are not behind a custodial room have a sight pane in them.
Okay.
Before we move on, I just want to
You
say
go right ahead, please.
that Mary, Shelley, Allison, thank you all for coming,
Thank you.
and just for what you do for our community and kids, and just thank you. It's not easy work, so we appreciate it.
well, I'm just gonna say thank you right back, because it takes a village. We can't do this work on our own. Working in silos is the wrong way to do it, so thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo that place of, again, I mean, it's an honor to be in this county, in this community. I said years ago when I was in front of you all the last time, I've been in Jefferson County since I was like, maybe 6, I think. This is home second only to the place I graduated high school from. My family's had property here since the 90s, right? And so being in this community, serving our families for generations is a huge honor. And again, everybody's here tonight because what we ultimately care about is that kids do well, that families do well, that this county does well. And so it is just an honor for our team to be able to serve alongside you all in meeting that vision and mission.
I think what we're gonna be doing here is the MOU, that is not a document that we voted on, we approved. So I think we're going to go ahead. We're not gonna actually change anything in it tonight. However, I would like to go around the table and find out from people what, if we were to change something at the next meeting, what they in fact would like to change in it, so that we can give Dr. Arnold a heads up, so he kind of knows what we'll be talking about, and the rest of us know what we'll be talking about at the next meeting. So I am going to take a chairman's prerogative and just ask everybody if they could go around and very quickly cite sections of the MOU that they would like to change and what they would like to change in it. But obviously, we're not going to take any votes to make those changes tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to request that this document be on the agenda at our next meeting.
I believe it is it not?
Not this just MOUs, all it says.
Oh, all right, so you want this,
Oh,
the
business.
MOU as presented?
Yeah, that's,
Okay, that's fine,
it'd be on the agenda.
That's fine.
It's included in the packet.
that's fine. Okay, we started going this way, so let's start with Ms. Mayor, and if you could cite what section and what subsection you're talking about, and say what you would like to change, modify, omit, whatever. And let's make this as quick as possible. Let's not have a lot of cross discussion on this. I think our thing right now is just what everybody's concerned about, and then we can have most of that discussion at the next meeting, so go right ahead.
Let's see, I'm just refreshing my mind on my meeting notes from last time, so,
And this we will hold to the 6 minute.
so, one of my questions was with section 22, is reading this section.
The whole section in general?
Yeah, I'd like to know really why the attorney put that in there, so. Let's see here. I mean, like, section, section 22F, contractor will provide consultation with classroom teachers to assist in creating positive trauma-informed classroom. Trauma-informed classroom, do we know what that consists of exactly?
So you're asking what that term refers to?
Yeah. Trauma-informed classroom that enhances the learning environment and assists the teacher developing effective trauma-informed behavior responses. So trauma-informed classroom.
I think more in general, it's that, that they will include the classroom teacher to assist in the process of, discussions about, as a two-way street. So we'll provide consultation with the classroom teachers. So,
It's a very broad term.
right, it is a broad term.
Trauma-informed.
Right.
And I think that there needs to be more detail on that.
So, of course, there, or, just as Helen Rose McNabb and Alan talked about including the family, and you heard tonight about the child spends sometimes the majority of their day in the school setting, more time with school than with family. I think there's an importance to have consultation on whatever, but that is a broad term, one that's used. Do you have something that you would, would you want to just shorten it to contractor will provide consultation with classroom teachers? Not worry about the terminology of what that consultation consists of.
Yeah, I think so. Because it's a very broad term.
Sure.
I think that it can open up a can of worms to other things has to receive contractor services at the teacher's discretion. That seems very broad to me as well. It seems to me like, this could be at any time, which kind of negates the whole, it's going to be at the same time, same day every week. So that says at the teacher's discretion, so.
We currently have that in place. Mr. Rogers has left, but if you call down to Philip Easterly's room, who is the German teacher at the high school, and you ask for a student to leave his room, it is at his discretion if he allows that child to leave his room at that time.
So you're saying they're contacting the teacher to see if it's okay to pull the students?
Correct.
It's not the other way around where Jimmy is being disruptive in class, and so at the teacher's discretion, he or she can send them out.
Oh, that is correct. So
Okay.
they work with the teacher to set up, just as you heard them talk about, TCAPs. The last thing they want is for let's say it's someone's birthday and they are having cupcakes. The last thing they want is for that child to come down for a session and miss that event in the class and be ticked off and add to. So they want that whole network to be involved. They want it to be at the teacher's discretion.
Okay. D, teachers will notify school counselors of the need for individual referrals to mental health service, and staff will submit the appropriate referral forms to contractor. So, the teachers will notify school counselors of the possible, I think the word possible needs to be added in there. Possible need for individual referrals. I mean, teachers are not exactly qualified behavioral analysts or anything like that.
Yeah, they're not making a diagnosis.
Right.
They're making a referral for an individual referral. So the
Right.
teacher does have the ability and the authority to issue a referral.
So the word possible should be considered added between the and.
So a teacher has the authority to issue a referral.
Referrals.
So teacher will notify school counselors of the need for individual referrals. So the teacher can issue a referral for a student. Then that counselor works with the principal administration to notify the families of the referral. And then it's up to the families if they choose to seek some sort of school or seek some sort of mental health.
There also.
Don, one more thing in this round for you, please.
All right, so, in section 22, I don't see anything in here for school district responsibilities saying anything about, student tests and assignments cannot be excused as a result of any behavioral services. And that student may still need to make up their full work. I don't see anything in there at all. So it makes me wonder, if I ask, are students being excused from tests or any kind of assignments to do these services?
So this would be what you're asking is on the school side of things. So that would have nothing to do with the mental health agency. It's no different than if a child is going to a funeral or going to a doctor's appointment, eye appointment, dentist. If a child is in any absence, then they still have the ability to make up, even a suspension. A lot of times we offer the child the ability to make up missed assignments, missed tests, those types of opportunities. So that would not be in the MOU, an agreement between the school system and the agency. That would be a procedure, and it's actually in board policy about absences and makeup work with students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill?
Have no problem.
All right. Coach?
I'm good with this one, like it is.
Dan?
I don't have no questions, but I do have a couple of comments. Thank both of you companies for what you have done and what you continue to do.
You hear that?
Yeah,
Good job.
that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of questions asked, a lot of questions answered, but to me, this contract or this agreement, whatever, the lawyer and Thomas went over it. I don't have no problems with it. Thank you all for what you have done.
Paul?
I just wanted a couple clarifications on something. Actually, is 21F and 22D, are they the same thing, basically?
21F. D.
One just talks about teachers and the other one's school staff. It's kind of the same thing though, right? Kids either in class or they're.
Yeah, so whenever it talks about, so you see 21 is under the school district responsibilities, 22 is under the contractor responsibilities. So 21F says that that is the district's, so the teacher has the authority to, school comes first. So if something's going on and at that teacher's discretion, the child cannot be released for services at that time, then the teacher has that ability. In 22D, it says that the contractor will coordinate delivery of services with the school staff to minimize disruption. So these two things put the school at the cat's bird seat. So we're in charge.
Okay, so it's just making sure that both sides
Understand.
understand the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here to work together, but in the end, somebody's got to be in charge.
Just sounded kind of redundant, but I understand what you're saying. And when do we, it says contract may provide training to.
Tell me.
Oh, I'm sorry. 22G. Just, and I don't want to change it. I just want to know the contract may provide training to LEA personnel regarding a variety of mental health and substance abuse stuff. When do they do that?
So this would be a lot of times at the beginning of the year. We have to have, so the state requires us to have some suicide prevention, some DCS referral.
Do they do it before the school starts? Is it
Yeah.
like that week before they go in?
Yes,
The school
yeah,
starts?
yeah. So we pay our teachers for 7.5 hours of training. State requires us 22 hours. It just keeps growing every year. We try to reduce it, but more and more requirements of teachers for, so some of the providers assist counselors to deliver this to teachers.
It's not like an in-service day or that
Yes.
week beforehand? Okay. The only things I'd like to see put in this, just because I don't see it in here, and I know that we discussed this, and I actually spoke with Dr. Arnold about this too. I'd like to see in here where it says that they do not facilitate a class of any kind of subject. And I can't find that, how it would refer to that in any part of here. And then the other thing would be not to enter any classrooms or other areas with other students that do not see mental health therapy. The attorney told us that would definitely be a no-no per FERPA violation. As in chilling out in the back of a science class just to kill time or whatever, you know. Those are my two big things right there. I do wanna ask you, when you're done writing that,
To what, I'm sorry?
I was gonna wait till he's done it.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to clarify one thing with the, number 5.
Yeah,
So,
did you get that one? Okay. All right.
on number 5, this was about the background checks.
Yes,
So when I spoke with the attorney, he said, yeah, well, I guess we have, it's done through the state, it'll be done through the state, whatever they do, which is what we do. That's
Yes.
what this is
yes,
referring to, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, TCA 495413 is the same requirements that we hire our staff at. So they would have the same requirements for their employees.
That's a requirement of the Department of Education? Is that the
Yes.
same one? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And the only other thing, and I don't know how we do this, and I think it would kind of,
Oh, 1 minute.
not to schedule appointments that could be scheduled in a mental health office. Mr. Bennett had said that that's something we should not be doing. However, how you kind of line that up to where a student needs to see him versus setting appointments, and it kind of sounded like he was kind of not sure where you draw a line on that. And I didn't know if that was in there, or how that verbiage was, or I didn't see anything, but. Because I don't want a child, if they need it, I don't want them not to.
Right. And I think we talked about the sole responsibility of a MOU with a mental health provider is not out of convenience. And we conducted a RFP. So we sent out a request for providers to help Jefferson County schools with an issue that we saw within our school system, and to provide services that exceed beyond what our counselors are able to do, and to provide to our students. So this is above and beyond just convenience. And I think that the attorney was good with that, having that RFP piece associated with, there was a reason we went out for this. It wasn't just to, I've got a good friend who has a mental health agency, I'm gonna let them in the schools and we're gonna, do some work with them. There was a need that was seen, we provided that, reached out to vendors, and they came in to support. We do have right now 2 vendors and a list of other agencies that can provide services to our students.
Thank you. Okay, I will start by saying 2 of my main concerns at the outgo here has always been, number 1, liability. How the liability of the school district for what our our behavioral health providers provide, that seems to be addressed very well in this MOU, and I'm satisfied with that. The other one was parental rights, making sure that the parents are involved from before any referral makes place, before any major decisions are made, and before therapy ends. With what was said tonight, as far as the parents, if they want to be involved in the therapy sessions, other than in very special situations they may be, that's even better. So those 2 concerns of mine have been satisfied. I do have some questions. Number 1, in paragraph 1, number A, I would like to delete the word partnership because it seems to completely go against what's in section 17. This reads, contractor assumes all duties associated with operating the mental health services partnership with Jefferson County Schools at the following schools, whatever. And then in 17, it says, nothing herein shall in any way be construed or intended to create a partnership. So it seems like that goes against what number 17 says. So I would like to insert the word program in number 1 for partnership, just so that there's no misunderstanding. Again, number 2, term. This agreement commences on whatever and shall terminate on the June 30th, 2020, whatever. Upon mutual written agreement, the agreement may be extended. I would like to say upon mutual agreement and review by the school board, this agreement may be extended at the end of each term. So I would like to add the words review by the school board. Number 5, compliance with all federal and state municipal laws. I would add to the end of that, of the final sentence, and shall provide JCS with copies of same. So that that sentence would read in any, agreement and shall obtain any and all permits and licenses necessary to the performance of its duties, and shall provide JCS with copies of the same. So in other words, I'd like to have copies of the state, whatever, the state approvals for Allied and McNabb on file at the schools. Whether that's necessary or not, I don't know, but I think from a legal point of view, that's reasonable.
Of the clinicianer's license?
Yes.
Okay, not of the background check?
No.
Yeah, okay, I was just making sure, because all that's rolled into 5. And
Yeah, just in case
we
a parent comes in.
we don't share those, and we wouldn't want to share those.
No, that would be in case a parent comes in and said, I'd like to see the qualifications of the person who's going to be seeing my kid.
Yeah, and no matter if I have those or not, I'm going to refer them to, even if I have them, they may not be up to date. I'm going to refer them to the agency.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Number 5, A and B.
Hold on one second.
No, okay.
Let me make
Yeah, Paul has already covered that, so I'm not going to cover that. Number 9, that was answered in my questions. Section number 14. Oh, okay, we are, number 14A. Indemnification, contractor shall hold harmless and hold harmless JCS to officers, agents, and employees from, all right? Again, this is an MOU, this is not a contract. So I would like to, the contract is mentioned twice in this.
Where at? Tell me again.
I'm sorry, this would be, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th line down, connection with the performance of the contract. I would like that changed to agreement. And contractor shall pay JCS any expenses incurred as a result of the contractor's failure to fulfill any obligation in a professional, timely manner under this contract. And I would like that changed to agreement. Number 18.
I missed the first one.
I'm sorry.
I missed the first I got it now.
You got
I've got it, yeah. It's like them word searches my mama used to do.
Right. Number 18, scope of services. I just have a question, and this is probably something I can talk to later. I don't know what an SBBHL, that acronym, I just need a clarification.
School-based health liaison.
School-based,
Does that fit?
Behavioral
It's school-based behavioral health liaison.
School-based behavioral health liaison.
That's
Do we-
that term, that language is the language that the governor has utilized.
Yeah, if
in
you
all
look
of
under
the
one,
School-based program.
if you look under one,
Okay,
duties, the third line,
oh,
for
okay.
school-based
Gotcha.
behavioral health liaison.
So it is spelled out. Okay, good. Okay, the 21G. Is there specific verbiage in the parental permission for services form indicating that the district can provide this info behavioral to the health forms? This one says, the principal or principal's designee may provide contractor with information about student grades and attendance after the contractor has obtained parental permission. Is that parental permission a separate form, or is that included in the original permission?
No, it's a
form?
separate form.
Okay.
So we do this with several agencies. One in particular is Boys and Girls Club, where they serve students. They get parental permission, and we share things with Boys and Girls Club.
But the parents have to sign a separate
Yes,
permission form for that?
they do. We protect those student records are under FERPA, so we would not share those without a parent consent.
Okay. Is there some way we could clarify that that's a separate form, and that the parent knows that by signing the original parental permission form, they're not, saying it's okay for this, that they would actually have to give specific permission for that? That's just a question. If we can
Yeah.
do it, fine. If
I can
not-
put it in there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We all know, so I will add that, to clarify that that is obtaining. So anything a parent does with, a mental health agency does not, they won't share with us, personal information without, us getting approval from the parents. Same thing as going to a doctor's office, anything of that nature.
I've exceeded my time, so I'll come back for the rest of my stuff. I don't have much more, but, Ms. Mary, do you have anything else? You do not. I presume, Mr. Hardy?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, is everybody through making changes?
Well, I have one more thing, but
Go right ahead.
all right. 22E. Contractor shall follow the guidelines of the school in obtaining parental permission as necessary prior to the delivery of services to students. Contractor will not see any students under the age of 18 without parental consent. The school staff/counselors will reach out to parents of any student under age 18 and obtain parental consent from the guardian/guardians, and I would like to put in written and signed form prior to providing contact with the referral services. We probably do that already. I'd just like to clarify that that's what we do. And that is all I have.
Yes, sir. Now, I've already asked for this to be on the agenda. So this document will be number one under MOU. There's going to have to be a document with all your changes in it. There's going to have to be a document with all his changes in it. So there's going to have to be two more documents, two more MOUs under that heading. This one's number one, because I already asked.
That's fine.
I think, you understand, I'm just trying to clarify,
No,
where we are.
no problem.
There'd be it need to be just,
Sure.
make a motion, if this doesn't pass, we've got other choices, see. Unless you all want to combine your, into one document, instead of having three separate documents, you could have, if that's the case, I don't know if there's a clarity between what you want and and what he wants.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to see the document that we've added all this stuff. I'd like to see that as a finished form for us to look at too, on top of the one that he's.
Yes, yeah, that's what he just said.
Yeah, I'd like to see, instead of seeing three separate, I'd like to see it as just one completed MOU
Okay,
for us to look at it like that. So, and if anybody else wants it separated, that's up to them, but I'm fine with putting it all
So
together.
what Coach is saying is with this is already on the agenda.
and that will be voted on
And
first.
then everything that's been changed will be number 2 on the
Yes.
agenda. So, and I don't have a problem either way. I mean, you know, with everything being changed, I'm fine with that too, as long as we get these people under contract.
So we understand that? Dr.
Prime example is whenever we talked about, bonuses for employees.
Yes.
We had several options, and we ended up choosing a $500 and this and that, and there was another option out there. So, understand that, you know, I've got 7 people that I work for.
Sure.
And then also, we are working on agreements with 2 agencies that need to make sure that they are in compliance. And then we've got a board attorney, and we've got a meeting Thursday, so, I'll be on. I've already informed Bennett, you know, they're aware, I'll send them some information, and, you know, I'm sure if they have anything from this conversation that's glaring, they'll reach out and let me know, before tomorrow morning,
That's why I wanted to have this conversation.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the MOU before we move on? Dr. Arnold, do you have anything more in your director's input?
Items for information, that's pretty, so recognitions, we won't hit any more recognitions till school gets back in session. As you see over there on the left, there's no principals here tonight.
There was.
Yeah, Randy was here, his boys got a game, so they may wander in, but, you know, they've got a lot of stuff going on. Hardest job I've ever had was a principal, so I told them till we get back in session in school to not feel like they have to be in attendance, they're welcome to come. And if we have anything that comes, I mean, hopefully we won't have anything that arises of great importance. But we are working on Talbot. You know, I've updated you a little bit there, so we've got that project out for bid. We'll see how that goes. There's a lot of construction going on, so we'll see how that goes. And then we're still working on contract with Blankenship. Attorneys are always fun to deal with. Right now, I'm kind of okay with what the contract states. Bill's okay with the contract. We have one hiccup that both the county attorney and our board attorney has an issue with, so that's where we're at. One problem, 2 lines, but it's a sticking point right now. So, but just to let you know, as far as Jefferson Elementary goes, you know, we'll look at having, we've talked about that construction manager. That's the RFP that's out now. That's the next group to hire. They'll work alongside the architect, and then down the road we'll look at an environmental company to help us with testing and ensuring that we've got a safe work environment for our staff and students. So that's where we're at. And then also in here is threat assessments. That's a document that we've ended the year with. I've sent you information before just on the quarterly report of number of threat assessments, but this is a more detailed report to end the year that we are submitting to the state. And then for the upcoming board session, I will bring the document that was presented last month, and then, I will also just label it 1, it'll be first on the agenda, and then right under it'll be an updated version that'll be on there. That's all I've got, sir.
Commissioner
I have
comments?
a question. MOU and contract.
Yeah.
This is a memorandum of understanding, but who are we negotiating with? I mean, you know, like the teachers, a memorandum of understanding, and when the board votes on it, it becomes contract with the teachers, right? It's bad. So if we approve this document, or your document, or whatever, it becomes a contract. They have to follow. So, I know I'm just confused. But
Yeah, it's a little bit of verbiage. A lot of times contracts deal with money. Memorandums, like we have a memorandum of understanding with the sheriff's department with the use of SROs. We have a memorandum of understanding with Carson Newman to use their facility during emergency evacuations and what they'll do and what we'll do. We have several memorandum of understandings.
But you were kind of negotiating with the sheriff department, all right?
Yeah, I signed those. Yeah.
See,
So-
so with Carson Newman.
Yeah.
But see, they weren't involved in the formation of this memorandum of understanding. The people who are going to provide these services, they had no say in this document.
They do have a say
They
in
did.
signing it. So they have seen it. Of course, they've seen it.
Right.
And a lot of times, that's, the sheriff presented the memorandum of understanding to me. I presented to Carson Newman the memorandum of understanding to them. And we came to terms of agreement. And so they do have a say in approval of signature. So,
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
but
so a lot of times
that's why I say,
contracts.
to me,
are-
it's a contract.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a form, a memorandum of understanding is a form of a contract. Usually it is less,
That's fine.
yeah, less binding. It is, doesn't involve money exchanging hands a lot of times. So, just in this incident, there is no money exchanging hands in here.
Okay, commissioner comments? Mr. Hardy?
I would like to thank both Allied and Ellen Ross McNabb for showing up tonight and answering questions. I had a lot of questions, but I appreciate all the answering of them. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Martin?
Mr. Charles Hickser has presented us with a question about prayer. I'd like for he and Mr. Arnold to work together and see what we can do. I know last year before last, someone said something about praying before a football game, and of course, I know the state won't allow that, so whatever you all can work out, then present it to us, and we'll
Yeah.
agree with it.
Yeah, and, you know, just to elaborate on that.
What you can do and
I
what you
will
can't.
say that each of our schools, we have flags within our classrooms. We have students in elementary, middle, and high school. You know, every day at the high school, the ROTC goes out and raises and lowers the flag in a ceremony type situation. In elementary school, they go out and put the flag up. One day, someone sent me a picture, the flag was upside down, and I said, well, they're 9. We made a mistake. So it looked good whenever they were hooking it to there and flying it up. Some people are not as forgiving as others. But, you know, we do take that into great pride. We also, every morning, in all of our schools, start our day with a moment of silence. That is very important to us in preparing our students for activities of the day, to have that moment of silence. And it is, it's not to be, I mean, we have, everybody within our public school is from different denominations, religions. A lot of times various individuals don't want their child to have a certain prayer prayed to them. So we give our students, our staff, the ability to have their own prayer, their own moment of silence every day.
Over 38 years of teaching, I've seen a lot of prayer in school, particularly when it's test day, and had that test, there was a lot of praying going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't interrupt.
Yeah, I gave my mother-in-law's German. She definitely respects the moment of silence, because she remembers whenever she was in grade school, whenever the cross was removed from the school wall and Hitler's picture was placed on the wall in its place. So she comes here to this country respecting the moment of silence.
Anything? I have just a couple things. First of all, we don't have any meetings in July. So, once we have our next business meeting, that's going to be it for a while. So I'm just reminding you, we do have a joint meeting with the County Commission on July 17th at the Patriot Academy. All right, we are hosting this, so the agenda is up to us to set. So if anybody would like to put anything on that agenda, please contact Josh Cameron, who's the chairman of that, or Dr. Arnold, July 17th. Number two, the policy committee is meeting the 25th, August 25th. The reason I'm saying that, we will have meetings before that, but if you look at this, take a look at the legislation, it's like all of that was legislation that had to do with education that was passed. Those are all policies that we are going to have to review, add, delete, whatever. So if you individually, as commissioners, had any policies you want to have discussed at the policy meeting, please get them to us, because if you don't, they're going to get lost in all of this.
So on that meeting, we might as well bring supper.
We probably will end up having two separate meetings. I mean, it's amazing what went on.
July 26th, special call. June 26th.
Yes.
June
June
26th.
26th, a special call. That's for last minute budget amendments for the budget.
Yes.
And one personal thing, I think most of you knew that my mother-in-law died a couple of weeks ago. I want to thank everybody, school district commissioners, for all the nice condolences that you sent to me, and especially to my wife. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your concern and care. And if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Can I say one other